You flip a plastic switch. A spark catches gas and you have fire. You turn an iron knob on your stove. Blue heat instantly appears. You hold a wooden stick, drag it against a box, and light is born in your hands. But you have never crouched in the dirt as the sun vanished. You have never felt the temperature drop, knowing that a bone-chilling dark was coming. You have never looked at two pieces of wood and known that if you could not force a spark out of them, you would not wake up tomorrow. For almost all of human history, that fear was real. Every single night. To drag a flame out of nothing, using only rocks and dead branches, was the ultimate defense against death. It was a skill so desperately needed that our ancestors bled for hundreds of thousands of years to master it. And the truth about how we cross that line changes everything you think about the body you live in. Let's dig into the dirt. In 2012, researchers were scraping through the deep sediment of Wonderwerk Cave in South Africa. Down in the dark, in layers buried 1 million years ago, they hit something that shattered our timeline. Burned bone, white ash. Homo erectus, a hominid with a brain much smaller than yours, had left behind undeniable proof of fire. 1 million years ago. But this discovery leaves a massive, haunting question hanging in the air. Did they build that fire, or did they steal it? Science took decades to answer that. Because finding a fire is not the same as making one. Using a flame and birthing a flame are two entirely different worlds. Lightning hits the dry African savanna. The grass burns. Any creature can walk up to the aftermath of a storm. Even birds do it. The black kite hawk will snatch a smoking twig in its claws to drop on dry brush, flushing out small prey. But carrying a stolen flame does not make you its master. You can drag a burning branch out of the ashes. You can feed it dry leaves. You can shield it from the freezing rain with your own body. That takes planning. It does not take the knowledge of how to make a spark exist from nothing. For thousands of generations, our ancestors were slaves to the weather. They waited for lightning to strike. They kept those stolen fires breathing, but they could not start them. That helpless dependency was a terror we cannot comprehend today. Picture a life chained to a flame you cannot restart. A sudden rainstorm hits. The embers die. Your camp goes pitch black. The meat stays cold and raw. And the teeth in the dark come closer. The leopards and hyenas that refuse to cross the edge of the light suddenly realize the barrier is gone. One bad storm, one moment of sleeping on watch. That was the line between a living family and a massacre. People who remember the old ways know the crushing burden of this reality. Men and women walked for days, carrying live coals wrapped tightly in leaves, or guarded deep inside hollow animal horns. They had designated keepers. They had strict rules for moving through the wind. Imagine the sheer psychological weight of that. The survival of everyone you love rested on a tiny, fragile red glow cup in your dirt-stained hands. Dropping it meant death. This is exactly why the moment we stopped waiting for lightning and learned to strike a spark from cold stone was the ultimate rebellion. The oldest hard proof of humans ripping fire from nothing sits in dirt layers between 400,000 and 700,000 years old. Deep inside Qism Cave in Israel, ancient hearths show clear signs of deliberate control. They were reigniting flames on command. In Europe, Homo heidelbergensis left the exact same clues behind. The power dynamic had violently shifted. Fire was no longer a rare gift dropped by storms. It was a manufactured tool, a raw technology. But how did they actually force a spark out of cold earth? Two brutal physical methods broke the dark. Rubbing wood, smashing rocks. Friction fire forces you to violently spin or scrape two dry sticks together. Heat builds in the carved groove. The wood dust turns black. A fragile ember is born. Percussion fire demands you crack hard flint against iron pyrite. White sparks fly out, desperately searching for dry tinder to catch. Both methods sound incredibly simple on paper. Both are pure physical torture in reality. Friction fire requires a flawless combination of specific tree branches. It requires exact angles. It demands relentless downward pressure. A single drop of sweat falling onto the wood dust can murder the ember in a second. You fail. The cold rushes back in. Our ancestors had to bleed to figure this out. They spent thousands of generations failing in the dirt. They learned through sheer brutal trial and error exactly which rocks sparked. They learned which wood combinations produced life, and which ones gave them nothing but bleeding hands and bitter frustration. That invisible knowledge was not free. It was bought with extreme physical pain. Handing those hard-earned secrets down from elder to child over generations created the most valuable asset any human tribe could ever possess. And this exact moment is a massive pivot. Because right here, fire stops being a simple survival trick. It becomes a story about you. In 1999, researcher Richard Wrangham dropped a massive, controversial theory on human evolution. His core argument was brutally simple. Cooking is not just a daily dietary habit. It is the exact biological reason you are human today. Processing raw meat and rough roots takes a massive physical toll. Look at our bodies compared to wild apes. We have tiny stomachs. We have incredibly weak jaws. Our intestines are dangerously short. As a biological engine, we are severely underpowered to survive on raw fuel. But dropping a raw animal over a flame completely flips the math. Heat breaks the meat down long before you even chew it. It acts as a powerful external stomach. Cooking violently unlocks the fibers and essentially doubles the accessible calories hidden inside the meal. And all of that massive, sudden surplus of energy went to one highly specific place. It rushed straight up into the skull. Your brain is a supercharged engine. It accounts for a tiny 2% of your total physical weight, yet it brutally demands 20% of every single calorie you swallow. It is the most metabolically expensive piece of flesh in biology. And the fossil record clearly shows that human brains aggressively exploded in size at the exact same moment consistent fire pits began appearing in the deep dirt. This is not some random biological coincidence. Fire did not just keep the freezing wind away from our skin. It physically built us. The heavy brain you're using right now to understand these exact words was constructed by cooked meat. You are, in the most literal sense, a direct product of the flame. It extends the day. Before fire, your useful hours stopped completely when the sun went down. When darkness hit, early humans did exactly what every frightened primate did. They found a dark corner and froze. Moving in the blackness meant dying. The massive cats and hunting hyenas dominating the African night could see perfectly in the pitch black. Fire brutally broke that equation. A blazing hearth draws a strict 30-foot circle of safety in the dirt. Inside that glowing yellow light, the monsters will not enter. Step past that 30-foot edge and claws and teeth still rule. But inside, for the first time in human bloodlines, the night was safe. Fire handed our ancestors 2 to 4 extra hours of life every single night. Over thousands of generations, those stolen hours completely rewired us. They are the exact moments when the first myths were whispered into the dark. They are the hours when spoken language evolved and deep social bonds were cemented around a fragile flame. The campfire was never just a tool to melt the freezing cold. It was the original social network. And the exact second humans figured out how to spark it themselves rather than begging the sky for lightning, our timeline violently accelerated. A wandering tribe that could spark a flame in the freezing rain using only 2 dead sticks could survive anywhere. They could pack up and walk into any lightless cave or any freezing environment on Earth. The power to spark a flame on demand perfectly explains our brutal conquest of the globe. It is the exact reason Homo sapiens could successfully start walking out of Africa roughly 70,000 years ago. We did not just carry smoking branches stolen from a storm. We carried the raw blueprint of the spark itself. That invisible knowledge was never hardwired into our physical DNA. It was heavily encoded into our minds. Passing it from bleeding hands to bleeding hands across countless generations became the original human superpower. Somewhere deep in the timeline, between 1 million and 400,000 years ago, a nameless human sat down in the frozen dirt with 2 dry sticks. Through pure stubborn will, raw intelligence, and the brutal trial and error of thousands of dead ancestors, they forced a tiny spark into existence. They gently cupped it, fed it oxygen, and watched a blazing life grow from the dead ash. We will never know that specific person's name. We will never know the shape of their face or the raw sounds they spoke. We do not know if they truly understood the terrifying scale of what they had just unleashed. But they had just achieved something impossible. For 4 billion years, no living creature on this rocky planet had ever done it. They built a fire out of absolute nothing. And in doing so, they violently changed the world forever for every single human who would ever walk the earth after them. That directly includes you sitting right here in the absolute comfort of this exact moment, warm, entirely fed, and breathing alive inside the long unbroken light of everything they started.